Happy Wednesday, friends, and welcome back to A Daily Walk. Here we are in the middle of the week, and I hope things are going well for you, that God is blessing, and you've made it to the middle of the week. And now we get to pick up where we left off in the Word of God, and we are in the Gospel according to Mark chapter 9. Jesus and his disciples, 3 disciples, Peter, James, and John, the inner 3, had gone up onto the Mount of Transfiguration with Jesus, and there they saw Jesus transfigured, metamorphosis, a glimpse of his glory, and it had a profound impact upon them. But they couldn't stay up on the mountain. They had to come back down into the valley. And as they were making their way down, making their descent, we pick up in verse 9, as they came down from the mountain, he commanded them that they should tell no one of the things they had seen till the Son of Man had risen from the dead. So they kept this word to themselves, questioning what the rising from the dead meant. It's interesting, isn't it? As they're coming down the mountain, Jesus said, hey guys, listen, I don't want you to say anything concerning what you've just seen until I rise from the dead. Now, the first thing that they thought was, what's he talking about? Rising from the dead. They still didn't understand. You remember we'd read earlier in Mark's gospel that Jesus talked about his crucifixion. He talked about his resurrection. But every time he talked about it, it's as if they just didn't hear it. So when he talks about his resurrection here, don't tell anybody until I've risen from the dead. Like, risen from the dead, what does that even mean? They didn't understand it. If they did understand it, they would have been at the tomb on the 3rd day waiting for Jesus to come out. But they just didn't hear it. I'm sure that was difficult coming down from the mountain. I thought, what about the other disciples? I'm sure they asked, hey, what'd you guys see up there? We can't talk about it. What do you mean you can't talk about it? Sorry, Jesus told us we can't talk about it. I'm sure there was a little bit of tension between the disciples over what they got the opportunity to see and what the others didn't. Well, the questions keep coming because as they come down the hill, they asked him, saying, why do the scribes say that Elijah must come first? There was an anticipation of the prophet Elijah coming. And you remember at the end of the Old Testament that it says in Malachi that before the great and dreadful day of the Lord, Elijah was going to come. There is an anticipation of Elijah. Even now, when they sit down to a meal at Passover, there's a seat that's reserved just in case Elijah shows up at the door. People were expecting Elijah. When Jesus went to the cross and he was saying things from the cross, they said, wait, we think he's calling for Elijah. They were anticipating Elijah. And I do believe that Elijah will be one of the 2 witnesses during the Great Tribulation period. But that's a story for another time. But here, Jesus answered their question. He said, indeed, Elijah is coming first and restores all things. And how is it written concerning the Son of Man that he must suffer many things and be treated with contempt? Jesus kind of takes it off of the focus being on Elijah and kind of brings it back to, hey, it's also written concerning the Son of Man himself. He's going to suffer. He's going to be treated with contempt. And then he adds to this, but I say to you that Elijah has also come, and they did to him whatever they wished, as it is written of him. Now, when you read the other Gospels collectively on the descent off of the Mount of Transfiguration, we get a little more insight that Jesus was referring to Elijah in the sense of the ministry of Elijah. It looked a lot like John the Baptist. John the Baptist came first, and they put him to death. He was martyred by Herod. He was beheaded on Herod's birthday. They did what they wanted to him. Elijah came. But there is also, Elijah's going to come. The Bible refers to it in the last days. Elijah's going to show up during that great tribulation period. So Jesus is trying to help the disciples understand both the near fulfillment and the future fulfillment of prophecy. But he also wanted them to understand, most importantly, that he was about to die. But they still didn't comprehend it. Not only die, but rise again. Well, when they got to the bottom of the hill, it says in verse 14, when he came to the disciples, he saw a great multitude around them, and the scribes were disputing with them. And immediately, when they saw him, all of the people were greatly amazed and running to him, greeted him And he asked the scribes, what were you discussing with them? Here you have this glorious experience where you're up on the mountaintop, you get to see Jesus in a way you've never seen him before, and then right when you come down the hill, what confronts you? Well, we find arguing, disputing, demon possession. I mean, talk about robbing the joy of just what you experience. And that's interesting because I think that's how it is sometimes. God does some work in your life. Maybe you go to church and God speaks to you and it's powerful. On Sunday, you think, oh man, I'm so thankful for this. And then you hit Monday morning and here comes the warfare. Here comes the attack. Here comes this. Here comes that. Just trying to take away what you just received. So there was this dispute going on. The scribes are involved. They're challenging the disciples. And they're going back and forth and the people are involved. And Jesus said, hey, what were you talking to them about? What did you ask them? He inquires, and he gets a response in verse 17. Then one of the crowd said to him, Teacher, I brought you my son, who has a mute spirit. And whenever it seizes him, it throws him down. He foams at the mouth. He gnashes his teeth, and he becomes rigid. So I spoke to your disciples that they should cast it out, but they could not. Jesus is confronted by a desperate father. And again, the Gospels collectively give us even more insight. This man's son was demon-possessed. And this demonic spirit would often throw him into the fire, try to drown him. And the father didn't know what to do. He was just overwhelmed. Came to the scribes, they couldn't do anything. Came to the disciples, they probably attempted to cast out the demon, but they were unsuccessful. It's just a frustrating, desperate situation. But yet the man came to Jesus. And Jesus then said, how long, O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I bear with you? Notice the words of Jesus. Bring him to me. Bring him to me. And they brought him to him. And when he saw him, immediately the spirit convulsed in him, and he fell on the ground and wallowed, foaming at the mouth. The father was desperate. He didn't know what to do. He was at the end of himself. And one of the Gospels record that he brought him to Jesus, and the father said to Jesus, if you can do anything, help us. Jesus said, if you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes. And the father responded and said, I believe, help my unbelief. He wanted to believe, but he was struggling. In a moment, next time, we're going to see what Jesus does for this man. But listen, you may be in that situation today. Maybe you're desperate. And you say, I believe. I know Jesus is able. I need help with my unbelief. And you know something, friend? The Lord helps in our unbelief. He knows our weakness. He knows our frame, that we're dust. He knows that we struggle sometimes with doubt. And if you're in that place today, don't be condemned. The Lord is here. The Lord is present. He wants to minister to you right now. You just come as you are. You bring your needs to him, and Jesus will meet you right there. Trust in him today. He's for you. God bless you, and we'll continue this story